Hello, this is Jupiter, fifth planet Keyforge from Manlius, New York, and I have with me Dominic here for another Burn in the Stockpile. But today we're bringing back an oldie, and we're introducing a legend. So, Dominic, you want to say your highs and intros?
Hey, I didn't think I was that much of a legend on
Oh,
here on Burn the Stockpile.
oh, you're not.
But
You're not. You're
oh,
trash.
so if it's not me, then you must be talking about Ollie. Is it Ollie that you're talking about? Because he came on before. Is this the person that you mean?
No, he's the guy I'm bringing back. Okay, so I wouldn't choose to bring you back, but I brought him back.
Oh, okay, that's fair. So you must be talking about Balancesheet because he's I mean that's the name of this channel as it is, and that could be the only person that you must be talking about.
It is, and it's amazing that he gave us his time. So say hello.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me on.
All right, and then Ollie, you say your hellos too, since you kind of got dwarfed by.
Hello, my name's Ollie.
He's back from last week. As you remember, he was the Archon Alters person, and we liked him so much we brought him back. He's gonna be a regular part of this. Harlan is in the background cheering for you guys if you can't hear it, but he's very excited for this episode as well as I am. And today we have quite the list of things to go over with Balancesheet, since we are going to do a special on his artwork, and we're gonna get some in-depth knowledge about it that maybe we would have never known. So hopefully you guys will enjoy the show. But let's get this started. Dominic, I'll let you bring in the candle units.
Hey, so we gotta start off with yeah. So let's talk about Candle Unit here. Candle Unit is in one of my favorite houses to start off with, and I just love this card. It's an excellent card for those of you that are unaware. You should be aware because it's a 5 power card, and as those who have been playing the game, anytime your opponent reaps, you get to draw a card. And of course, nothing better than having a fantastic card than having art that matches with it. And this art is really interesting. I enjoy it quite a bit. I almost think of like a Christmas Carol, and what I mean by that is just like I'm thinking of just the individual that's lighting up the candle, but instead of it being a human lighting up the candle unit itself is lighting itself up with a piece of amber. So it's just a nice little touch there. But yeah, great piece. We'll dive more into it, but that's my opening for it.
Yeah, Ollie, what do you think about Candle Unit?
I really like the card itself, and it's a really unique creature because it doesn't match the rest of the Logos creatures. And I really like the
Yeah.
unique type of robot.
Yeah.
It looks like it's running on amber or something like that.
And the thing about Candle Unit for me, like when I look at this, is like I think of it as like you like exactly like along the lines of what you said about like it being kind of different from regular logos, and it makes me think of fish, right? And like it thinks of like all the things we found in the in the fish and stuff in the sea, and then like we found this like the lamprey, right? Like way deep down in the ocean is there's like this fish that has like a light on its head, and it looks completely different. Like it looks like kind of like big teeth and like just crazy looking, but not what you would really consider a fish. And it's kind of like what I feel like. I feel like this Candle Unit is so far deep into either space or like into a cavern somewhere or whatever that he's kind of in this like self-sustained mode and stuff. So he's like really interesting in that aspect. And the mechanics and like the way that it glides and stuff, it's like obviously like filled with ember and energy, because even some of his like limbs and stuff are connected by the energy and not by like an actual like piece of metal or whatnot. So I'm curious to know where and how this concept came about. Balancesheet.
Sure thing. Speaking of the arms real quick, my art director always has to remind me Logos creatures usually have their limbs kind of disjointed by that energy field thing connecting it. So originally it was hooked in and they said, no, you need to separate that out because that's what the Logos thing is. I said, okay, that's fine. And it worked fine. I don't mind doing it. They just need to remind me now and then. But for this piece, the first part of the process when I get the briefs from the client after I tell them how many pieces I can sign up for, usually I can sign up for a good amount. I get the briefs, basic premise for each illustration, what kind of card it is, and what it needs to have in it. And that's always my favorite part of the process, aside from is reading those briefs, because that's when those first ideas come to mind. Just what are the different directions I can take this? And the brief for this one was a Logos creature in a crystalline cave of some kind that was harvesting amber the shape of the creature would be something like a candlestick or a candle you would use with the disc around it and everything. And the robot would be putting a piece of amber in kind of a spigot where the candle itself would be, and it would look overall like a candle, hence the name candle unit. And when I got that, I said, "Oh, this is going to be interesting." And there's always a handful of pieces in every set that I get where I'm like, I really want to focus on this one and see where I can take it. And I ended up pushing myself in a much different direction than I usually go, like all the different metal elements on the body itself. Normally, I would have done something much simpler, but I thought I kind of want this. I want it to feel more elaborate, have this kind of almost Cave of Wonders type vibe to it. Not the normal Logos look per se, but kind of taking it in a slightly different direction. The sketches, there's 3 of them there. I usually do 2 or 3 sketches for each illustration that they ask me to do. And the process is I'll do sketches and send those in, and then they'll tell me which direction they want me to go with some notes if needed. Sometimes they'll ask me for a semi-final as I'm moving along just to make sure it's going in the right direction. I don't know if they do that with all their artists. Do it with me because my sketches are a bit different. Usually artists that turn in their sketches, they're a lot more tight in terms of you can tell exactly what the composition and the details are going to be. I work more with like solid blocks of color where I can. And I think I'm probably the only sketch artist that goes straight to color. My colors aren't that far off from my final colors usually. And I just prefer to work that way personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier for me.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and it's like I find it interesting for myself being an art. I was an art student, and this is kind of how I would sketch as well. Like I sketch in shapes. Like the first thing I usually do is I look at shapes, and then I look at color. I'm very much a fan of that idea, and then details kind of fall into place as they go. And I will say that it wasn't until I really looked at this sketch, the first sketch, the one that is the actual sketch of the candle unit, that like I could honestly go, man, this is actually not a candle. Like I thought for sure it was some kind of candle. I never even thought of like it was ember at the top and not a flame. So like it's kind of cool to be able to deep dive into this and see that, because even with the way that you did the play on lights around the amber insertion, there's like that little bit of light that's shooting up that looks like a wick, and so like pretty brilliant. And I appreciate this art like so much more now that I understand better what it is. So
the 3 sketches are definitely really interesting, and so I love being able to see the before the finalized picture and seeing the options that are given right when you mention it, giving it to the client. In this case, I think that the one that was chosen was probably the one that I would have been the happiest with, because it's more of a side view of the unit versus the one of them looks like you're looking at it more into the cave, but it looks like it's a rear view, and then the other one is another side view. But I think I like it where it's just the one hand that's putting the amber piece in versus I think the center one, if I look at it correctly, looks like it's using both its hands to put this amber in. So it's really interesting options. And hearing about the actual story, because as Jupiter and I probably mentioned in the past, we always loved telling stories, and hearing where the inspiration and what the final aspect is really cool. I had no idea that this was basically an amber cave, and that's an interesting nugget in itself.
It's interesting that you say like you like the of the 3, like the first one again. Cause like I really like the first one, and it's because like it creates like this like cutesy like image of the robot, and it like really focuses on them. But like the third one, like it really like screams Logos to me. I'm not really sure why. Like it's like the mad scientist like kind of vibes to it. Like it's not like a cutesy little explorer robot. It's just like this crazy robot that just loves feeding on this amber or something. I also find like I find it fascinating from like an artist perspective. Like you start with the color and like there's such like broad like color shapes. Do you start with just like random shapes, or like a little bit more like thought process? Like is your thought process like with the shapes that you kind of know where they're going towards, or you just wing it a little bit?
I usually start out with the silhouettes, if anything. I don't put any detail, anything, just getting the basic forms as quickly as possible. But I move pretty quickly into color after that. I'll usually do the backgrounds before I start doing the silhouette, depending on the piece, just to get the right vibe that I know I'm going to want down the line. And then if I get a silhouette that I like and I start repositioning it and tweaking it in Photoshop to get it exactly how I want it. And then once I feel like I got something solid, I'll start putting in some very basic details because there's not that much point in spending a lot of time on a sketch, which is, I like that about sketches. I don't like the nitty gritty stuff as much. I like planning things out and putting together the big shapes before focusing on tightening it up. But yeah, I just make sure that the lighting works and that it's interesting to look at. Sometimes I'll do a sketch and I'll look at it and I think I don't want to send this one in, so I'll come up with something else. And sometimes even I'll do a few sketches on one day and then the next day I go back and I think, oh, these just aren't quite hitting it, and I'll shoot out a couple more and then I'll realize, oh, I'm glad I did that because these ones are way better. But that's the basic process for me. I do a lot of speed paints in my free time for a group on Facebook called Daily Spit Paint, where you only have 30 minutes to get a painting done. And that's really helped me out with my sketches because it forces me to be really quick and very economical with my time. And it's a lot of fun. And aside from getting the brief, it's my favorite part of the process, just doing the sketches, because there's no stress. If it doesn't work, I have only wasted maybe 15, 20 minutes on it and try another one. So no big deal. It hurts when I've been working on a piece for hours and hours and hours, and then I realize that something is terribly wrong and I have to start over. That's what I hate. But sketches are just so much fun to do.
I can imagine those sketches really helped with like lighting and stuff, because you've really, like, even with your little tiny sketches, you hit the nail on the head, like with like the lighting of the drawings, and like the main focus of it is like one of the things that helped like get through like sketches is like the quick process of a whole scene just from lighting alone.
For me, I just kind of do it out of instinct.
Okay.
Like I said, other artists take their sketches in different directions. They'll have a bunch of different thumbnails where it's just black and white values, planning things out. I like to get my colors settled right away. I like to know final direction I'm going to be taking things, and it's just kind of a habit for me to push that way.
Yeah, I think when you do like when you're like a colorist in theory, like your main principle is colorist, because I do impressionism and colors a lot myself. I think it's more important to get the light and dark dynamics right and like the color dynamics right. Like, and I think the light and dark effects, like the chiaroscuro type effects, I think they just come naturally when you do it with color, because you need to make depth, and the only way you can make depth with color is to basically have like analoguses and like complementaries in the right place. So I don't know if that's true for you, Steve, but like I think I totally appreciate this style. Like I think I've already learned stuff just looking at your first sketches, and like, wow, why am I getting so detailed? I can do this. This is so much better.
Yeah, when they're sketches, they don't need to be perfect. You can just have so much fun with it. I mean, it can be frustrating if there's a concept that is really, really difficult and you're not sure how to approach it. I've had a few cards like that with Keyforge. I asked my art director about that, and he asked, are you guys purposefully giving me the hard ones? And he said, oh, you caught us. You figured us out.
I was just going to say, so speaking about, getting the hard ones and whatnot, like I was saying earlier, I think a lot of the community really enjoys this specific card within Keyforge, and of course loves the art. I was just wondering, what do you think about the card itself? Because I believe you do dabble a little bit in Keyforge, if that's correct.
Oh, that's correct. What I think of the card itself, I'm glad that it came out a pretty strong card. It's kind of annoying sometimes if I spend a lot of time on a card and then the game comes out and meta-wise it's just meh or bad. I don't think I've had any straight up bad cards, but I've certainly had some less than useful ones. But this one's a pretty solid card just in terms of its board presence and that great passive ability. And not to mention being able to capture on top of that when you need it to take an opponent off check. And certain decks that can work really well with that. If you got a Saurian deck, for instance, and Worlds Collide, there's lots that you could do with that Captured Ember potentially. So I'm really happy that it's a strong card. I'd love to find a deck with like maybe 4 of those or something, and just see the other guy try to reap.
All right, if you guys are out there and you have a 4 candle unit deck, you let me know and I'll get in touch with Steve, and I'll make a deal with you and get it to him. I promise. He is pretty amazing. He had a couple decks back in the day that were nice that he got given as a gift from FFG, if I remember, that you used to raise some funds and stuff with, right?
Oh, yeah, that was great because they do send me a deck for every set that comes out. Sometimes they'll send me the larger box, sometimes just a deck. Mm-hmm. And I got it, and I opened it up, and I didn't think to scan it or anything first. I just thought, oh, this is cool. I want to see my cards because it had some of my cards in it. And then I started doing some test plays with it, and I thought, oh, this is really good. Why is this so good? And I checked online, and at the time it was in the top 50 decks, I think, out there.
Yeah, it was
I was
really.
like, what the heck? Why did I open this? Oh no!
It's a really.
But
It was a really good
I
deck.
ended up auctioning it off, and yeah, that was really great. I threw in some extra goodies like playmats and stuff, but it was a really good auction, and I still keep up with the guy who bought it, and I check in on the deck now and then to see how it's doing, and I think it's still probably his highest rank for the owner. So I'm just glad it's getting some mileage out of it. I don't get too many opportunities to play where I'm at because I live in Mexico, and it hasn't quite caught on here yet. I hope it does down the line, but so far not so much.
Yeah, I think it will. We'll see what happens once COVID clears, right? Like it'll be a time for a second push, I think. And this is a kind of game that can recover quickly. But so now we're gonna just move on with the Infomorph. So the Infomorph is basically a wonderful looking card. Like this is probably out of the set we got here, this is the one I think I like the most because of the details and the color play. I like the skeletal like shape of it, and the mouth is really cool because it reminds me of like the old aliens, like the dune worms and things like that you see. So like this piece really speaks well to me, and I love the amber like pushed through it and stuff. And I don't know, this is definitely an amazing piece of art as far as like the color contrasts and the shapes and the flow and stuff. So that's where I stand with this one. Ollie, where are you at on this one?
Yeah, no, I really love it. Like the composition of it is, it's why it leads you up to its like blue glowing body through to its face, like screaming face, and like it's like bird wings coming out, like this explosion behind it. It just really draws you in. Like I really like the colors as well. It's very like red for a Logos card, but it really draws you into like the blue amber inside of it. I really like it.
Yeah, it's like I like when I think of the name of it, even it's like with the morph idea. I think that it's like this wasn't originally a Logos creature, but Logos is taking it over. Like that's what the energy surge is. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Dominic? Where are you at?
So it's interesting you mentioned this. So for me, I think that this has always been a Logos creature because I think of the technological aspect of it. But I'm going to actually read the flavor text of the card. And it says, always clear your search history. And this is a quote from Dr. Escorda, so another Logos member. And what's interesting to me was, until I just read that flavor text, which, by the way, in tons of games, I tend to always forget the flavor text. And when I read it, it always adds so much value. Because when I read that flavor text and it says, always clear your search history, I almost feel like the Infomorph is either gathering information or it's some sort of Logos virus that is taking all the information and it's going back to the Logos library and stealing it in some ways. And as far as the card goes, yeah, so I definitely think it is a Logos creature. I can see the light that you're talking about there, Ollie. But I think that's actually it's actually something that you see in the law of Balancesheet's work, is that there's a lot of I don't know how to describe it, but this like the red coloring there in a lot of the Balancesheet's work, you see similar aspects or similar colors in that way. And maybe I'm out to lunch, but that's just the way I see it. But the card itself and the art is it's really beautiful, and I love that is some sort of mystical creature, but like I said, is also robotic in nature, but being put alive with all that electricity going through it.
Yeah, I really like the warmth of this, right? Like the orange, it makes it feel like it's in a computer, right? Like with all the warmth colors, like the yellows and the reds that you're talking about. I think that's where that's at. But you still get like all the cool like Logos blue and all the ember and stuff and the information or whatever it is that's surging through this. But enough of our speculation. Balance sheet. You tell us what was going on with this one. This one is pretty neat.
So the brief for this illustration, if I recall correctly, it was a Logos creature that was made out of these, I don't know, shifting metallics that were changing from one shape into another, basically from a snake-like shape into a bird-like shape. And that was basically the extent of the brief, if I'm not mistaken. And I got that. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with this? I'm not quite sure. This is either going to be really good or really bad. So I did the sketches for the image with that in mind. And I wasn't really planning on pushing it red particularly with that one. I always try to give a few different color options to the client. So I've got kind of a reddish one, kind of a more yellowish with some green in it, and then one that's got more blue tones to it. And between those three sketches, the art director resonated most with the red one. So I said, "Oh, great! I'll do that." I get some flack for using red with logo sometimes, but I really only do that because I like the way it contrasts with the border colors for logos, the blues and the oranges that frame the illustration. So I like going that way because it contrasts, especially with one of my other cards, Library of Babel. When I did that piece, I thought, well, this is okay. But when I saw it on the card, the way it framed with that blue, with all those reds that I had in it, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I do kind of push red into logos, probably not where it's supposed to be, I'm sure. But when I have to, I'll go blue with logos. If I get a special prompt like this one, I just like it because it calls a bit more attention to itself, and he definitely calls attention to himself. And you can see the work in progress that I provided there, which is basically a 3D render that I did to build out the basic shape. Because for this one, and with the time constraints that I had at the time, I wouldn't be able to really do it all by hand and keep all the different to be more or less consistent in their shape. And so I used a 3D program to put together the base for the illustration, and then I ended up layering on top of that and doing the detailing and the polishing and things like that. So the work in progress, you can kind of sort of tell looking at it that there's 3 elements in there. I'm very happy with the final result for this, and I was able to punch out kind of push the head of the creature back with a little bit of atmospheric lighting and have the torso coming forward, which gives it a nice bit of depth. I mean, the torso being to us, there's less atmospheric lighting between it, and normally he wouldn't have that big bloom behind his head that was called for. And then the shape of the creature kind of brings him into that center torso where there's all that fun detail, and then up towards the head was that explosion of light. So I think it came out really well. Of all the cards I did for that set, Mass Mutation, this one was by far my favorite to do.
Yeah, this thing it definitely paid off. I think this is brilliant. Like I don't know, like it's just like it's aesthetically just pleasing. Like everything about it, like speaks to like movement and to energy. So it's like I really like it, and it's like I really got nothing I can add to it. It's like it's just brilliant. So if you guys are ready, I'll move on. But if you want to say another piece about this, go for it.
I just want to ask, do you design do you design the cards and the artwork to the card now? After you said that it looks nice with the red and the blue, do you do that with all the rest of your cards as well, like with the other houses and stuff?
I actually do. I'll use a director if like there's a new house, like when Unfathomable came out, I asked them, do you guys know what the template colors are going to be for this card? Because that'll really help me plan my colors accordingly. Sometimes they have them ready, sometimes they don't. So I usually kind of have to guess if they don't. A lot of the stuff I did for Saurians, I did not have the colors at the time, so I wasn't able to coordinate them well. And anything for the first set, I didn't have the template called the Archons because it was brand new. But ever since then, yeah, I try to keep up what the colors are. So
yeah, and that's super fascinating for that. And the 2 items that I want to finish off for this one is that when you were mentioning using a lot of red in logos cards, I think the one that stands out to me the most, and I only bring this up because it's a nice little card, is the group think tank. But that's because there's like explosions going on in the background and there's like actual fire and whatnot. But the other item that I actually want to cover more was that when you said that it was a cross between 2 different types of creatures, I'd never really noticed when you mentioned that like a snake when you were given that guidance. But when I look at sketch number 3, I really see that shape, that snake body in the face of the snake, and it's really fascinating and interesting to me. So moving on to the next card that we have on our list, we're going to be talking about Palpate, which is a card within Star Alliance, which is another fantastic house. I absolutely love that house. And this card is interesting because it feels like an episode of Star Trek to me, with like those the little furry creatures, or anytime they have like just like an innocent looking thing, and then all of a sudden it grows and now it's in the hallway and they have to deal with this issue. And so this card is actually not that common because, well, it's not common at all. It's a rare card. It's a 5-power card, and it says after a player chooses an active house, destroy each artifact of the house. Now, getting into Balancesheet's art for this card, it's absolutely fantastic. This one is I just love it because it's just like this giant, almost like just like a very innocent like larva. Like it just looks like a giant larva. And when I say larva, I mean like just a small little thing that I'm just imagining it's just growing and growing and growing, and now it's too big for this location. And I love that basically the Keyforge or Star Alliance version of a red alert is going off because maybe they don't know what's going on in the ship, but all of a sudden their ship is just getting damaged, and now someone's looking and they're like, oh god, we have to deal with this creature.
Yeah, like whenever I see it, like it looks like it's like this massive like alien. You don't know what it is. Like it's like this gelatinous blob. It's like forever growing up, growing and growing. And like whenever I see the card, the card trait is like jelly, and I always find it funny, jelly, because like I always can imagine I put like a story to it, like put like as this is actually like a jelly is like a bit of food. It's just outgrown and mutated and outgrowing itself, or like it's like some sort of experiment gone wrong in like a lab or something. But yeah, the colors are amazing. I like the big red clash against the bright blue white lights. It's really nice. And
Yeah.
the composition
Uh,
draws you right into it.
Yeah, I was gonna say in this one, it's like it's funny because you mentioned that because like when I look at it, I think of it the Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs. I think of the chickens that they had in that, and but at the same time, like when you say jelly, I thought of box trolls, and I'm just like, yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's like some weird gelatinous chicken thing. I don't know, like it's weird, but I'm really curious to know what you were thinking with this one because this thing is like really abstract, which is a little bit out of my taste zone, but it is definitely interesting. It's kind of like almost Buddha-ish in its weirdness.
It was pretty abstract for me as well. When I got the prompt, they were saying they wanted this captured specimen basically that's escaped from its lab, and it's this gelatinous creature, and as it's moving along it's kind of dissolving the bulkhead and the machinery around it, and just the lab explorer escaped. So I did the sketches for them, and for this set I did 2 sketches, not 3. I guess I was really busy, but I did a red one and then a green one. The green one looks more like he's in a laboratory, and you can see that he's broken out of some kind of containment unit. And it was nice, but I'm glad they ended up going with the red one just because it kind of has their flow to it compositionally. And also contrast wise, like Ollie was saying, having that the blues, I had so much fun doing that. If he was any other color, it would have been a drag for me. And as I was moving along on it, one of the hardest parts about me, it's just this abstract gelatinous thing. How do I give it personality if I can? I can't exactly give him a face or anything. As you could see in the whip photo that I have there too, that's me blocking in the shape, figuring out the lighting. By the time I'd gotten to that work in progress stage, I'd already gotten the background figured out because I built that separately, and then I just kind of incorporated the jelly creature into it. But it's still pretty rough at that stage. But it was just really hard figuring out how to give it real form and character, and not just be this weird random blob red shape in a corridor somewhere.
Say it is interesting that you said that it like that you were like, how do I give it a form? Because I think with the reds and the oranges and the yellows that you used and on the actual creature itself and the whites, like you kind of gave it almost like a Murloc-y kind of face, like for a lack of a creature type, but like a fishy kind of snout kind of there, and like the depth of the lights, the yellows that kind of give it this transparency. It almost looks like a gullet. Like I thought you did a pretty great job of turning like a ball of goo into a shape. So
Yeah, but turn execution. I hope they don't give me any more of those though, because sometimes I'll get kind of typecast for certain things. Oh, they say, oh, Steve's really good at this, let's give him that. And then I'm like, I might be good at it, but I don't like it. It's really hard. When I got started at Fantasy Flight Games, my very first piece for them was for Android Netrunner, and scene with flying cars in traffic. The card was called Traffic Jam, and
Oh yeah,
I wanted to impress them on that one, so I really put a lot of time and effort into it, and they liked it a lot. I still like it a lot, but I became the car guy after that, the flying car guy. Let's give all the flying cars to Steve, and I hate cars. I'm not good at doing cars. And so a lot of my next cards for them was just cars, because let's give it to Steve. He knows how to do those. So I like it when I get typecast for things I enjoy doing. Like if there's a piece that has woods in it or landscapes, I love doing those. I would be do those.
I was just going to say, it's funny that you mentioned Netrunner, which is a fantastic game, and you're talking about flying cards, because then I was looking at your artwork for Keyforge, and you probably know which card I'm going to talk about, but I'm looking at Library of Babel, and that seems to like almost connect right away to me when you mentioned the flying cars aspect, because you got the city here and you got the main vehicle that's flying through.
Oh yeah, I hadn't quite made that connection, but yeah, that makes sense. That was very tricky to figure out.
That's funny. It's almost like subconsciously you reverted back to Netrunner for that one.
I don't think that was too long after I learned, but I'm just glad the way everything came together on that one. That could have been a mess, but I was pretty happy with the final result. I'm very glad that I added that little tentacle sticking out of our pulpate in the foreground. It just gives a little bit more character to him, and the ways the subsurface scattering and bounce light in it as well. That makes a great focal point in what otherwise would just be kind of a blob. I ended up flipping the composition from my sketches because I found that better flow to it if I were to just flip it the other way. And that happens sometimes with my pieces. The art directors don't care too much. But in this case, that orange line on the wall kind of leads you in, and then it kind of brings you up towards you spend some time at that little arm there, and then you kind of go up to the head and the like the ceiling and everything like that, and it gives it a nice circular flow to it, I think.
Yeah, I think the movement is real good, and you can tell that it's almost like the hall is pushing one way and he's pushing the other way, so you have that like conflict, right? Like, and the conflict creates the tension that gives it like the grip, so that you know that it's pretty much wedged in there coming out. So I think you did a great job. Like, and this is like one of those pieces where like I would like if they gave me what they gave you and said draw this, I'd been like, I don't even know where I want to go with this. Like, I'd have been scared. How about you, Ollie? Like, you're an artist. Like, how would you like to try to figure this out on your own?
Yeah, no, that brief sounds like a nightmare. Like, I don't know how you'd even start.
You guys are just looking at it wrong. I would have just taken the D&D gelatinous cube, plopped it in the Star Trek scene, and I was good to go.
That's why you're not an artist.
You're exactly right.
So now I want to talk about opposition research, and this is one of the cards that I actually never paid enough attention to the card, the artwork to, as I never noticed the drones in the background. So all I saw was these dinosaurs walking through this like city, and up until now, I then eventually saw the robots, and I was like, okay, they're just like scanning them, watching what they're doing, and then only today I actually saw that they're like holding these twigs with like trees on them, with a bit of bush on them, and I'm now appreciating this card a lot more. And these strange expressions from like the dinosaurs, just like, what is going on with these robots? Like, this is when like Logos is getting a bit like quirky. I don't know. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's like when I see this, it's like I see the dinos, and the dinos, it's like they're having a conversation. Like I was in the military, so it's like I feel like that they're having the conversation. Is like, do they really think they're hiding? Do they really think that camouflage is working? And being robots, like maybe they don't know better. Like, I don't know. It's just like interesting. How do you feel about this, Dom? It's pretty jovial.
I think you guys got the wrong picture completely. I think those Logos droids are actually hidden and well placed, and those dinos have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. They're hidden extremely well, and yeah, it's an interesting piece of art for sure, and I can't wait till we get and start digging into the final version that Balancesheet initially did versus the revised final, because this is one of those nuggets that we've never seen before, and it's actually pretty fascinating to me that basically they almost look like they went from, hey, we're just dinosaurs with a little bit of armor on, and now we've gone like Gears of War, have these shiny pulsating armor pieces, and they're a little bit more what's the best way to say, the dinosaur on the left, interesting how that just a few more horns at it, so they're just a little bit more aggressive finding instead of like a more of a peaceful saurian that you would have initially expected. But those logos, guys, they're well hidden. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna before we let let Steve go. It's like I'm gonna say that they're not well hidden. Like, they're not even close.
Well, I never saw them start, so I'm with Dominic here. They're very well hidden.
You saw them, you just didn't know that they were trying to hide. But anyway, either way, these guys are they're pretty neat. And like I said, in the final versus the final revised is like you just see like an extra layer of color and pop. Like the before he revised it, like I think it didn't have enough light to it, and I think in the revision you see everything is basically upgraded. Yes, the armor gets more detail and stuff, but there's just a lot more color, also like contrast with the light and the dark of the color. So, but we'll let him take it away because this is actually one of the funnest pieces I think I've seen from you. So,
yeah, that the thing you said earlier. Do they think we can't see them? I wanted them to put that as like the little flavor text on the card, because that's basically what he's saying to his friend there. Do they think we can't see them? Because we can totally see them.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So Dom, 1-0 me.
I'll still beat you in the game anytime, but okay, that's fine. I was clearly on your guys' side, but you know, Logos is my house, so I had to think that they were stealthy like shadows. That's all it is.
No 3-dot devices here, buddy. But with that said, Steve, go ahead and tell us more about the concept. So it sounds like we nailed this one pretty close. Like it's like the story of this is just perfect. Like I think it tells everything. It's like they're walking through the Saurian capital or whatever in formation, and all the other dinos are kind of focused on their march, and these two are kind of like the guys in the back, and they're just like, "What's that? Oh, those are Logos robots. I think they're scouting us out." Yeah. It's like, do they think we can't see them? Why are they holding trees? Like.
Yeah, I can almost imagine them all having like Portal Gladys like kind of voices going like wondering, or each asking each other, "Do you reckon they can see us?" and stuff like that.
I'm just like waiting for like Saurius Rex or one of the like Cincinnatus Rex or Spartosaur to just be like, "What are you guys talking about? You're in formation!" Like just getting ready to get yelled at. Like, but there's like robots up there holding trees. What the hell? Like, this is such a fun scene. I can't get the story out of my head.
Yeah, this was a real challenge for me because I don't usually do that many pieces that kind of have a narrative element to it. It's usually just a cool-looking creature or an interesting artifact. But this one, they kind of wanted me to play up the narrative element a bit. Though they didn't say anything at the beginning about the soldiers recognizing them or not. I just kind of added that on my own. The original brief for it was some Logos drones spying on a Saurian phalanx that's marching somewhere. And that was pretty much the extent of the brief, and getting that was really challenging because I have to fit both of those elements recognizably into the composition. I have to have the drones, I have to have the dinosaurs, but the drones have to be far enough away that the dinosaurs shouldn't be able to see them because they're supposed to be spying. So that was one of those more tricky compositions to plan out, because I mean, it's like Ollie, some people didn't notice the drones, they just see the dinosaurs, which means I did my job too well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when you were filling out the composition for this, did you intentionally make the horns point at the drones and the spears to box them in? Like were those linear elements, those diagonals, were they meant to draw attention to the drones and kind of box them in, or was that just kind of like a collateral thing that happened?
That was just a collateral thing. That's the way the Triceratops horns kind of needed to go. So I wasn't planning that at all. But I did try to make sure that the composition was clear right where the drone's read, so there's nothing obstructing them other than those flimsy leaves in front of them.
I don't think they're
And
flimsy at all.
I think that was an art director who suggested that I do that, because the original sketch, if you're looking at the sketches, sketch 1 is the one that they went with, but my original sketch, they liked it a lot, but they said, why don't you give them little branches, like they're holding them up in front of them and like they're trying to hide, but they're totally failing at it. So, which was a great idea on their part. Otherwise, I would have just had them floating there and it wouldn't have worked nearly as well. But yeah, with the sketches, I have 3 very different options there. I really kind of wanted to go with sketch number 2 because I wanted to have like this general barking orders at this line of soldiers, and then in the distance you can see the drones back there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one was just the drones would be in the foreground facing away from us at this big Saurian procession in the distance. And those might have worked, but I feel like the art director made the right call with that one. Narrative wise, it just worked a bit better than the rest. And then adding that bit of element of the dinosaurs seeing them and kind of recognizing that they're there, but not sure if they should say anything, or I don't know. That just kind of came along as things progressed.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely the right choice in my opinion. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think it would be, I would still love to see sketch number 2 done up as potentially maybe an alternate art, because I'm not sure if FFG, I would have to double check the artwork that they use when they do the alternate art, if it's usually the same artist or not for the card. I would have to double check that, but that would be an interesting one to see, because it would feel more like an actual opposition for this one here. But I think the one that the opposition research chosen, so the sketch number 1 that was chosen here, makes the most amount of sense for the world of the Crucible and Keyforge in general. But I would definitely be intrigued by sketch number 2 to see that fully blown up and see what it would look like.
Well, this was also the first time that they gave me a card that had Saurians big in the composition like this. And I wanted to do a really good job on so that I'd get more Saurians in the future. I wanted to get typecast for that because they're just so much fun texture-wise and color-wise to work on. But when I presented that first final to them, they basically told me, it's good, but the dinosaurs need to be more colorful. Colors are a big thing. We don't want the more drab dinosaurs. We want them to make them punchy and colorful and fun to look at. And also they told me the armor's kind of weedy. You could definitely take that up a notch. And I don't remember exactly how many pieces I had for this set or how pressed I was for time, but I did that armor first and I tried to do a good job on it. But I said, well, most of this isn't going to be visible in the composition, so with the template on it and everything. So I didn't put too much time into it. But in retrospect, yeah, that was totally the right call on their part to make me go back. And I also tweaked the expressions a bit on the second dinosaur. And they asked me to change the buildings in the background to look more Romanesque with colonnades and domes and stuff, which was also, I just had those blocky things back there to begin with. But
yeah,
they don't usually ask me to do revisions quite this involved. Usually it's just like, I just tweaked this little thing here. Or most of the time they just say, this looks great, go for it. But almost all the time I agree with the changes that they recommend, because sometimes when you're working on a piece, you can get kind of tunnel visioned, where you've been staring at it so long that you can't see it for what it is anymore. When I work, ideally my schedule is to finish a piece like a week before the deadline, and then take a week where I don't look at it at all. And then I look at it again right before the deadline, and then I can notice something that I was completely missing before, like, oh man, I needed to change this, or I needed to tighten this up. But a lot of the times I get up right to the deadline with my schedules and I don't have time to give it that second look. So the art director has to do that for me. So it's always a little embarrassing when it comes back, but I haven't had any revisions that were like, do the whole thing over again. It's always been stuff that was necessary and in the end came out for the best.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that's like one part of like art that like I couldn't do. Like I was talking to somebody earlier about that. Is like I don't do commissioned arts or like directed art for people, especially for like any kind of fee, because like I feel like that's when I get trapped like mentally because like I'm like I just don't want to be wrong and I don't want to give them the product, and I think it makes it stressful. So what you do is absolutely like 100 times harder than people like me who do casual art, because when I'm doing it for myself, I do it the way I like it. When it's done, and like it's what it is, and if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But when you're working like with guidelines, that's like a whole different kind of monster. You and Ollie, like I bet you Ollie could speak on that a little bit too with his commissions and stuff. But like it's like I couldn't do that. That's why I could not be a professional artist ever.
It takes a while to get used to, but it's gotten to the point for me, where I almost don't do any personal work anymore. It's almost all client stuff, and that's not ideal. I'd love to do more personal stuff, but I just can't seem to get myself to work unless it's for a client, unless it's for money, because then I have to do it because somebody else is waiting for it, and I need to present it to them on time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I get free time, I just don't know how to do anything for myself anymore. It's weird. It's not ideal. It's something I'm trying to fix. But yeah, I'm kind of the opposite that way. I need to work on client stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a product of the monster, though, right? Like it's a product of the profession. Like it's like you've been ingrained and you got there to the point where you're professional doing it. So I never had that. So like for me, it's still I'm the other way because I never had to do that because I never put myself in that position. But how do you feel, Ollie? I bet you're the one that's right in the middle of this.
Yeah, I like a bit of both, but because I love being a little bit more creative, a bit more like explorative with like my drawings and what I want to do. So I like the freedom of doing it for my own like end goal. But at the same time, I like being like forced to go like out of comfort zones for clients that they don't like to get their preferences over yours. And it's a little interesting to have their insight into it. I like it, but I do prefer mine.
All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about all this stuff, so we're gonna get into the next one, which is the Dark Tidings card, which is super exciting. And Dominic, I saved you to go first on this one because I know your energy for Dark Tidings is high. So we're gonna let you high tide this one in. So go ahead and do this one.
Oh, sounds great. So you must be talking about Bubbles, because that card is absolutely amazing. Oh wait, we already talked about that one. No, what we're looking at talking about here has Archon in its name, and we are going to be talking about Archon's Revenge. And the reason why I love Dark Tidings already, being a sailor myself, is that I look at this and I immediately I'm excited for Dark Tidings. I see this coming in. I see the Shadows pirate ship basically just sailing in, and I'm thinking of like Pirates of the Caribbean or any other great like movie series like that, and using their technology. Like I feel like they're almost just coming out of their basically they're hidden, they're cloaked, almost like a Klingon bird of prey, except now they're on the water here, so it's a Shadows house just coming in, and they're about to ransack, I would say probably the Sanctum, because no one likes that house, of course. And this is a beautiful piece of art. But to step it back a bit, first let's talk about the card itself. So for those who have not seen, what it is Archon's Revenge is a ship. And for those unfamiliar, I believe basically every house in Dark Tidings is getting a ship, or at least 4 or 5 of the houses I know already have had the ships spoiled. And for this one, it's a artifact action. Exhaust up to 2 friendly Shadows creatures. For each creature exhausted this way, steal 1 amber. And so this goes hand in hand, like I said, with the Shadows house. I love that balance sheet that you went with them, having them being like pirates, because you think of Shadows, you think of stealing other people's amber and whatnot. So that's fantastic. And yeah, everything about this is I just love it quite a bit, and I love that it's during the night, but you got that the full moon there, and like I said, they're ready to ransack the Sanctum ship. It's just probably just outside of this scene.
So why does it have to be Sanctum, Dominic?
Well, why does it have to be Sanctum? Because, well, Brobnar, well, they don't even need a ship. They would just swim out into the middle of the ocean, and they would beat them up.
Oh, time
Mars,
out. You're telling me Vikings didn't have ships?
I'm saying they don't need it, except they do have ships because there is already a rowboat, if you know of the creature that I'm talking about. And then he has his his Viking ship that is it Ivan the Weak, and then what's the card off the top of my head? I can't remember the card's name. But they do have ships, but they're not going to get taken by the shadows. Come on now.
Fair enough. Where are you at on this, Ollie?
I really like the theme of like shadows pirates. Like I think it really works well together, and like this whole like science bit, like the cloaking dongles on the cloaking like equipments on the ships. Like I really love it, and it really like as Dominic said, like really like Caribbean. It's a Pirates of the Caribbean vibes of just like big, massive galleons and like of like I don't know little elves just running, skidding around the ship. I can really I'm really digging the that theme. And the card, like I really like the card. The colors works very very shadows.
Yeah, I like the motion in this again, and I like the night of it, like how dark it is and stuff, and like I love the idea that there's like this techno coat over the sails, almost like a cloaking, like they're coming out of a cloaking thing, like and there's like a portal almost. I don't know, like there's a lot of things going on here that are just so subtle and so awesome, and it's like all in the cover of darkness. So it's like it just fits the Shadows house like incredibly well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the story here, since Dark Tidings is still kind of new on the minds of most people here, and tell us guidance and stuff, all the cool stuff that you had to go through for this one.
This was the first Shadows card that I had the chance to do. I haven't done any other Shadows on other sets before, so I was really excited to get the prompts. And it's definitely a pretty big card to get for my first card as well. And I'm glad they gave it to me. It was more of it is basically a vehicle, which they know I can handle vehicles. So they gave it to me right away. I think I got one other ship for this set, but it's for the Unfathomable, and it's a submarine, not really a ship. But the brief for this one was, just a Shadows pirate ship at night, coming out of its stealth field, getting ready to attack somebody, basically. So you guys nailed it on the head there. I only did a couple of sketches for this one because I was pressed for time. One of them just with looking kind of worm's eye view up at the bow of the ship as it's coming towards you. Just this big, massive black shape. I don't even have to add that much detail to it. The silhouette does most of the work. And then the second sketch, I wanted to make it look like it's already opening up its cannons and starting to fire. And while there are things I really like about the second sketch, I'm glad they went with the first one. Compositionally, it works a bit better. Though I'd love to go back sometime and paint the ship again and do it the other way. That'd be fun. But this was a little bit abnormal for me in that I didn't do that much 3D modeling for this one. Normally with something like that, just to make sure that everything's consistent proportions-wise, I would make a model for it and then position it and do the paint over after the render. But for this one, because it's mostly silhouette, I felt all I really need to do is make sure that the silhouette reads properly. And since I don't have to add detail to it, it's a night scene and it's being backlit by the moon, I can keep things fairly simple. So I went with that direction. I'm kind of glad I did, because otherwise it might have felt a bit too artificial, too 3D. I like the way it came out. But I sent the final in and they told me they liked it, but that it needed some changes. So I have the files. Both of the files are named final there, but the final CMYK is the correct one. I sent the other one in first, and they told me if you could add a little bit more of that Shadows logo in that metal plate with the 3 holes on it. If you could add a bit more of that to the front of the ship, that'd be nice. They also told me to punch up the skull and bones a bit by adding a bit of backlighting to it, just to make it read better in the final composition. So I took that to heart and I went back on it. And I also took the time to render more of the front of the ship where the light is managing to reflect off of certain parts of it. So it's not just a completely flat shape. Though one of the hard things was getting those 3 little bits of light at the front of the ship to work properly, because I wanted to have that, stereotypical 3-point shadow logo to it. But if I orient it the other way around, the 2 on top and 1 on the bottom, then it's going to look like a face with a little O mouth on it or something. So I had to flip it around for this one. it was tricky to get that part right, surprisingly, but everything came together in the end, and I'm happy with the result. You might notice that the colors are a bit different between the final that I submitted and then the final CMYK one. When I work in an RGB process, as most people do, but they, being Fantasy Flight, they need CMYK files for the final print job. So I have to convert the colors from RGB to CMYK when I'm done working. And that's sometimes the most stressful part for me, because when you work in the CMYK color space, you have a lot less depth and saturation of colors. And for a guy that likes to push things pretty saturated, that can take a piece that otherwise looks really punchy and then just knock all the color out of it. And it's frustrating if I don't plan accordingly for that. I've had that mess up a few pieces that I've worked on before. But this one, though, I actually think it came out better with the CMYK conversion, because I know I get too saturated sometimes, and sometimes I don't see that I'm getting too saturated. But because the blues are more desaturated in the final one, it actually makes the center of the ship a lot punchier, because you still have those reds that are coming through and all the different colors in there as well. So the blues just become part of the background the way they're supposed to be, desaturated, not drawing that much attention. Your eyes focused on that burst of color coming up on the sails, which is where I want the eye to be. Whereas if you look at the other one, it's saturated all over the place. You're not really sure where to look. So sometimes doing conversion actually ends up being for the best for me.
Yeah, I think in the final like the color, like the cloud lines and stuff like that are a lot more detailed too, which adds more to the punchiness of it. And like the wave crash and stuff, like all the light there, like like you said, like usually it dulls it down, but in this case I think you're right. I think it actually made it brighter, and it gives it more shape. It made me notice the like the interesting sail better as well, like the way that it's broke up and kind of pushing three different directions. So like I mean, this is a cool piece. It's very aggressive. It's very shadows. It's very pirate. Like, hard not to like this. In the moon, it's like I would like to see some kind of subliminal shape in the moon, but that's about the only critique I have on it. But that's just me.
But it's funny you say that, because I was going to actually say that I almost do see a shape in the moon, but then I was looking closer at it and I was like, okay, maybe I don't. Because initially when I looked at it, I actually do see a person, and they are going left to right, and they're on a bicycle. So clearly I watched too much ET as a kid, but I actually did see some sort of a Crucible Keyforge creature in the moon, and it looked like they were on some sort of vehicle, and I thought it was a bicycle. But then when I like zoomed in and I was looking closer at it, I was like, it's just my imagination.
Actually, now that you mention it, it reminds me of like kind of like the Chain Gang guys, like on top of a building, kind of like the Copenhagen Gang silhouettes they had in the background of their team logo. Remember? It kind of reminds me of it now. Now that you mentioned it, but yeah.
Anybody in there? Everybody keeps saying it looks like someone's riding a bike. It was just an accident. Please stop. I wanted to give it a little texture, that's all, because the moon's got texture, but yeah, I should have paid more attention to what I was making there.
Yeah, it's funny that other people have said that. But all right, we'll let you off the hook then. We won't beat this one up anymore, but we will move on to a segment from the RPG. And this artwork is the Mascus Swamp, and for the record, the Mascus Asp is one of my favorite cards in Shadow, so not a lot of people probably know that. And when this artwork first came up, I noticed the long ass like snake, like the anaconda looking snake. And I thought at first it was the tail of the Mascus Asp, but then I realized maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually an anaconda type that's moved forward, and that's its head, not the tail. But it's hard to tell because of all the spots. So I'm going to let that one get defined here because I'm interested. And then you see all the little like dew fairies, like little like amber fairies of like flying around. See this weird Cthulhu looking thing up in the tree. You see like so many. The longer you look at it, the more things you see. Like you go, is that a tree or is that a monster? Like I don't know. And then obviously the crocodile is pretty obvious, or like it's just like sitting there with its mouth open, ready to eat something. But I know Dominic has a description that I've never heard. So I wanted to say my little piece about this before you read it, because I think this is like a creepy looking swamp, and I love it.
So this is going to be my plug-in for FFG, and it's going to be so the description I'm going to read from is from the Keyforge Secret of the Crucible, which is the Keyforge Genesis RPG. It's a fantastic game. There's a few of us that have been playing it for a while, and so what I'm going to read is the portion for Massa's Swamp, and it's on page 198 for those who own the book. So Massa's Swamp. Deep in the tangled wilderness, just outside the Valley of Jewels, lies the dank and steamy Massa Swamp. It is relatively unremarkable as wetlands go, with one glaring exception. Everything there is made out of metal. Wiry platinum moss dangles from the plutonium willow trees, each tinkling and chiming in the wind. Thick lead mangroves, their trunks as heavy as solid as neutron slugs, block harsh sunlight and create a type of twilight. Vicious banded cable vines wither in the dank air, each tendril capable of wrapping live prey in a vice-like grip and constricting them into easily digestible nutrients. Golden mosquitoes swirl and buzz, a mere nuisance singing but when swarming are capable of siphoning the flowing electrons from mechanical creatures and cybernetic enhancements in moments. Even the ground itself is of various soft inorganic like mercury and swirled together into a heavy squelch like muck. So that's just a little bit of the thing. So I apologize because I was butchering some of the words, but that is a fascinating little insert about the Massa's Swamp. The fact that it's a inorganic forest, basically a cybernetic forest, and yeah. So I'll let you guys digest that, and why don't we go to Ollie and tell us what you think about this art and the reading from there.
So I've only seen this artwork once, and that was when I glimpsed through the book. And I'm always fascinated when I see like landscapes from the Keyforge world that like build a bit more of like the lore and stuff. So after hearing the transcript of it and the description of it, I never knew it was like a fully inorganic like swamp jungle area. And I've never actually noticed, even if I just zoom into little bits there, I'm always finding another creature somewhere. But it's really like, which gives that like element of just like how alive this swamp is, but yet not alive. But like it's like full of these wondrous like danger. It looks incredibly like a dangerous place to be. I'm not sure how it fits into the Keyforge world. Exactly. I think I'd have to read the rest of the book, but it does definitely intrigue me on like what kind of creatures round this area.
It does make it interesting too that Damascus asp from Coda is skirmish poison, right? Like, so it's basically it has all the details of the swamp all summed up into it, and it's crazy. And like now that you mentioned the mercury water, I'm looking and I'm like, yeah, it's very metallic. You nailed it, Balancesheet. Like amazing. So why don't you tell us and walk us through this? Like this has a lot going on, so I'm sure you have plenty to talk about in this thing.
When I got the brief for this piece, they didn't have that elaborate flavor text for me. They basically just told me this is a swamp made out of metal. The Macis asp lives here. There's other creatures there too. But they wanted me to make sure that ground elements did have that kind of flowing metal, mercury, or gasoline spill look to them, that would be a big part of the aesthetic, just that everything feels as metallic as possible. And I did the sketches for them. I actually kind of like the first sketch better personally, but I'm glad they ended up going with the second one because it ended up being a much more dynamic composition. I'm not sure what's going on with the third sketch. I don't like it very much, but this was about 2 years ago that I think I worked on this, so I don't remember all my process working through it completely. I did use some 3D modeling just for the body of the snake to make sure that all the segments are the right proportion as it recedes out. And yeah, it's not a Macis asp, it'd be a Macis anaconda, like you said. I just fell in love with the idea of the other Macis creatures out here, crazy dangerous stuff, just like the Macis asp. So there's an anaconda and there's a crocodile, there's a kind of Komodo-like dragon back there in the background. I'm not sure what that thing is in the trees, or why it has tentacles coming out of it. I don't remember that part of my process, but I'm glad I did. Just the way the light from the fairies is playing off of them, it gives a nice payoff up in that corner. And in the original sketch, I had my trees pretty straight up and down. Usually when I do trees, I do it that way more as a compositional element to draw eyes straight through a piece. But then I tried experimenting. What if I make it those fun twisted trees? And I'm really glad I did, because it made this great circular shape to the overall composition. And it leads the eye in some really fun directions. And also the way the hard light is playing off of the side of the tree, that rim light there. And then you got the fairies lighting up the back side of the tree. Then that weird. Oh yeah.
I said, did you go with the 45-degree tilt because of like old Batman series, like the villains' layers are always at like that catty corner, like turn left or turn right, like that's what it reminds me of. Like so it just makes it feels evil because everything about it is pretty dark and just menacing. So I love it.
Well, it was a compositional choice just to keep things from feeling too flat and to add that sense of danger or excitement to it. Keep it from being too static. Because if I kept it at a flat level, it still would have looked all right, but it would have lacked a bit of that tension to it. The creature in the background was a real pain in the rear. I went through like 5 different iterations of it because I can't make him too attention grabbing because I don't want the eye to spend that much time back there. So that's why he's kind of vague. You can't really tell what it is or how big it is, but there is definitely something back there, and it's definitely not safe.
Yeah, I could tell it was a creature, but like I could tell that it was hard to tell. Is it a tree creature? Is it a huge dinosaur with like crazy tentacles? Like I didn't know, but like I definitely don't want to walk in this place. Like I'm definitely walking the other way if I see this shit. Like that, it's creepy. You definitely hit creepy with it on me, and I don't usually get creeped out. But like I was like, I don't want no part of this. I don't like crocodiles. I don't like Komodo dragons. I don't like Cthulhu monsters. I hate small bugs. Like you nailed every one of my fears. Good job.
And just to let you guys know, for where Massa's swamp is not the actual asp, is that it's just a little bit to the east of Hub City itself. So there's actually on one of the pages in the book on page 185, there's a art piece that I shared before that another artist did the entire map of the Crucible. That's called the local group. And so for those curious, that's where it resides. And I absolutely love this piece. Like it is very, very dark for Keyforge. And it makes me think of Disc because of the purples, but it also makes me think I don't want to be anywhere near this swamp.
Yeah, this is definitely one I would want to see you do in a print at some point. That would be sweet.
Oh, definitely. I'd love for them to say, oh, hey, now we need a Mesa's crocodile, and you already did one. Can you do another one for us? I'm like, yes, that'd be so much fun just to do the whole creature group from this swamp. But this was also, you pointed out the pink purple colors there. That was more just of a contrast choice. I wasn't trying to make it look Disc or anything. I would love to do a Disc card. I have not gotten a Disc card yet, even though I keep begging my art directors for a Disc card. So it's not worked out yet, but who knows? Someday, maybe.
Everybody write to FFG and tell them we want to see Balancesheet do a Disc card. I don't know when that's going to happen because Disc is gone now, but like we're going to petition for when Disc comes back. Balancesheet needs at least 6 of them. Give them.
And I'm actually going to say I already know what the creature should be. It should be that vague creature in the background in the swamp because we don't know what it truly looks like, and that should be the one that they allow them to like fully fledge out and show us what it truly is.
That would be exciting. It's just the color palettes for Disc that I love those pinks and purples and reds and everything like that because I was talking about the CMYK color conversion. Red colors are usually the colors that survive the transfer best. So that's another reason I like doing red pieces is because I know it's going to come out the way that I've been painting it, that same way it's going to look on the card usually. But this was actually also a weird piece in that normally when I do that color conversion, I'm not super happy with it. I have to try to tweak it. But when I did the color conversion on this one to CMYK, it looked actually much better than the original. And part of that, I think, had to do with some of the blues getting desaturated, and I didn't realize that they needed to be desaturated because there was a lot more blue in this originally. But I'm glad that the colors pushed back that way. It actually made it a much stronger piece when I looked at it later.
Yeah, there's definitely like a swampy, murky fog to it. Like it's pretty sweet. All right, so that's the Mascus Swamp. Do you have anything you want to add, Ollie? You've been quiet since the start of it. So.
I just wanted to ask: is there like a particular house you enjoy painting the most, or drawing, or designing cards for?
I enjoy all of them pretty equally for different reasons. I like the logo stuff for all the mad scientists and techie stuff. I'm pretty good with that. That's fairly straightforward for me. I like the Saurians because there's so much texture and so much that you can do with the dinosaurs themselves. Kind of that James Gurney look is something I'd love to explore in the future. They're just that real vibrancy and color that they have to them. Unfathomable has been interesting, but I'll hold off on commenting on that for now until everything's been officially spoiled, I think, even though a lot of it's already been spoiled.
Yeah, we won't push.
Mars was a lot of fun in the past, just the old school tripods type stuff like I did for Ammonia Clouds. I love for me at least, they have the most character and personality to them of any of the houses, and those have been a blast to work on in the past.
Yeah, I'd love to see your take on more of the Martian creatures. I think it'd be a bit more character. I'd love it.
Yeah, Martian.
If there's any that I don't particularly like working with it, not just because I haven't often anyway, but there's a lot of it's not my strong suit. Big muscular hulking dudes. I prefer doing robots and vehicles and landscapes and stuff like that. They're still fun. I enjoy them, but they're not my favorite. I don't have that much experience with shadows to say anything about them, and I still don't have an Untamed card, which is also unfortunate. But I'm not broken up that because I'm not that good at animals in general. I don't think.
Well, let's
They haven't asked me to do anything for that yet.
Well, let's use this as a segue to you don't have an Untamed card, where I would argue that you don't have an Untamed card, but you've done an Untamed theme, and you did this for the Key Chargers, right? Like you made a Key of the Forest, which is way better than Heart of the Forest, even though it's not a real card, because Heart of the Forest shouldn't be a real card. Plug. But with that said, why don't we take a look at this commissioned piece of art for the Key Chargers, and we did ask and make sure that we could use it in permissions, so they were nice enough to say that we could do this. And since we have the actual artist to talk about it, maybe they want to hear about this process. You put a lot of work into this one. I'm curious though, like the directive that they sent you on and all that other stuff. But before we get into it, let's dissect some of this. So Ollie, tell us what you think about this piece of art.
This fascinates. It fascinates me. Like I'm always wondering what this creature is. I'm like, because forging keys, I was charging keys for generating that. But I really like the strong red again. I love it. And I had the whispery like energy waves coming out, following with like the tentacles on the back of its head. And then it's clearly got this like core of power in it from the eyes and like the spine area. And then I like it. It's little set of keys on its belt, but like this charging this giant I can't remember the card game, the video game. There's the big key sword. It reminds me a bit like
Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts.
Says that. Yes, reminds me kind of like that. I like it. Yeah.
How about you, Dominic? What do you get out of this?
So here's a little bit, not to steal from the Key Chargers, because they probably have their own story for this. So my own version of a story that I give this is that this is actually an Archon, and this is the form that the Archon has chosen to take. So as people may know, that Archons can take on any form. They can be of any shape or size, and this is the story that I see. So it is a collector of keys, and he or she is deciding to find these keys, and they've just found this large key in the forest to add to their collection to hopefully eventually find a vault. I absolutely love this piece. Jupiter and myself covered the different team logos and art pieces that were out in a different video, and we said this piece was so interesting we wanted to save it until we had the chance to either talk to Balancesheet or to discuss it on its own. Now, what also is interesting about this is that I love this creature's back. How there's the scarification that you see on its back. So it's been in a few battles, and you have that color that is coming from its basically like its spine area, and so it's undetermined if this is a battle wound or if that's just part of the creature. But this creature looks very much menacing with its fiery eyes, potentially if that's its face or if it's a mask, and the tentacle like hair, and the fiery like helm, not the fiery helm, but I love the little fire on the top as well, and everything about this is just fascinating. It's a step aside from what I normally think of for like Keyforge art, but it's a beautiful piece, and I'm sure that the key charges were absolutely floored and loved this when it was commissioned.
Yeah, so my take on this is going to be a little bit weird, but maybe interesting. I agree with you on the idea that like this thing is the Archon, right? Like the Archon is basically absorbed into this like shell of a humanoid, I'll call it. And like basically you can still see the Archon coursing through him. Like you can see it in his eyes, his back, his arms, like the cracks of his arms, his hands, all that stuff, right? And I think that he actually is like all the keys on his little key ring that are on his hip, those are like keys that basically he uses to get from place to place, and like his magic is through these keys, right? And so therefore, like when he wants to summon something or he wants to use power, he basically takes the keys and channels his Archon ability through the keys, and that's what I think he's doing with this key. That's why it's getting larger, and it's like maybe opening a portal or doing something crazy like that. I don't know what the full story is. Maybe he's getting ready to throw a fireball. I don't know, but the idea is though like he's like basically a master of keys, and like he's using his energies and stuff and using keys as like a what would you call that, like a grounding like a thing to the world, right? Because the Archon is all energy, so he's like using it as like a grounding is not the right word, and it's gonna kill me that I can't think of what I'm thinking of, but like a vessel, like he uses the keys as a vessel for his magic. Like I don't think that's right either, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to say, right? Like it's basically the conduit for all the magic and stuff that the Archon uses, just like the body is like he's using it as a skin over him. He has the keys to actually send out the energy that he wants to into the world. So that's the story I get with this. And now we will let Steve tell us what the real deal is.
Well, story-wise, I didn't have too much in mind. The brief that I got from the team was pretty open-ended. They basically wanted some kind of character interacting with the key in some way. And one of the challenges with this is, since it is a commissioned art for a fan group, basically I can't directly refer to anything to do with the Keyforge brand. I have to be very careful not to do that. So I can't have any recognizable elements. So even though their team's called the Key Chargers, I would not be allowed to do that particular character from that particular card. I did ask FFG about that, and they told me basically, no, you can't do anything that's recognizably Keyforge, that's off limits, which was fine with me having that restriction because I could kind of take things wherever I'd want to go. But also still a challenge in that it has to still feel Keyforge to some extent, and I think it did in the end result. It's got a lot of my Keyforge style into it, even though it doesn't directly refer to Keyforge. FFG doesn't have a copyright on giant keys. I think, Kingdom Hearts has that copyright, so I'll worry about that later. But it was really open-ended. They just want a character with the key interacting with the key in some way. So I prepared a bunch of different sketches for him. I think I actually did ones that I didn't include here, but these were the favorite ones that I provided. The first sketch, you can see that's pretty much the way things ended up going. It's almost the exact same composition, just very rough, obviously, but I loved the idea of having these dark trees in the foreground and then having this mountain ridge in the background that is being lit by the setting sun or something like that. I had done a different speed paint earlier with the same idea, and I thought, I'd love to try this in a much larger piece sometime. So I just threw together a quick, kind of creepy looking character. I was kind of thinking something almost a cross between like an untamed shaman and some sort of dis monster, which is why in the final art you have those big tentacles coming out of the back of his head. Sort of, that's kind of a almost a dis reference, but it's not a dis reference because I can't do that. In the second sketch, I just tried some other stuff out. I like doing fun robot creatures as well. So I thought, what if this guy's displaying his collection of keys that are floating in the air in front of him in this big dynamic environment? It was just a fun idea to throw around, but I'm mostly just throwing out ideas quick to see what basic direction the client wants me to go, because I don't even need to stick that close to the original sketch if they just give me the parameters that they want me to continue in. And the third sketch, just a generic character who's somehow floating in the air, and he has this big giant key as a weapon or something that he's kind of holding behind him. And I really wanted to do something with a lot of clouds in it, so I put that nice pretty cloud there in the background, hoping that maybe if they pick that, I get to have a lot of fun doing clouds, because if I haven't said it before, I love doing clouds. But the fourth sketch, I actually really liked that one. I was kind of hoping that they would pick that one just to have some fun building this interesting environment, like these ruins that are at a high altitude mountaintop somewhere, and the lights streaming in through these windows, and then this thing's just charging at you, and it has keys for hands with electricity coming out of it. So I kind of want to do that piece on my own in the future sometime. I really like the sketch for it and the possibilities there. But again, I'm glad they went with the first one. That was a lot of fun to work on. With work in progress, you can see things as they were moving along. I had the trees rendered up a lot more. The character himself, I've had to make a lot of anatomy changes to get the arm working right. And you may notice that the leg is at a different position than in the final art when you're looking at the work in progress. And that was really hard for me because I like the dynamic pose he has in the work in progress. But I noticed that his leg, number one, that's not actually a possible way for him to be oriented without being in a lot of pain. And number two, it draws a lot of attention down and out of the composition when I actually want the eye to kind of come up towards the key. And I didn't want the eye being yanked down there by that interesting shape down there. So even though I liked it a lot, I knew I had to pull his leg back and then just do a normal crouching pose in the final piece. So sometimes I have to make decisions like that just in order to keep people focused where I want them to be. But in the end, after I got all the basic shapes and anatomy figured out, it was just an issue of rendering and cleaning and polishing to get to the final result. And part of me wanted to do this. I wanted to do a good job for any client, of course, but I also wanted to do this possibly as a portfolio piece for potentially, League of Legends or Hearthstone type application in the future, to do something more of this splash art aspect ratio and the same dynamism and color that you would see in something like that. So that was part of my motivation for really tightening things up and making sure it was solid. Of course, to make the client happy too, but I did spend some extra time on this that I wouldn't have normally have done. Because when I'm working on cards all the time, the card illustrations, it's just that same pretty boxy aspect ratio. I don't get to do very many wide compositions, so it was a real treat to be able to do that as well.
Well, awesome. It sounds like you found a little bit of your inner peace with art there. So you say that you only usually do it for clients. In this sake, I think maybe it brought you home a little bit because you got the freedom that you wanted without having like a serious art director over you. So, and I think it shows because I think there's a lot of personality in this piece. It's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. How do you feel about that, Dom?
Like I said earlier, when Jupiter and myself were covering like the different team logos and art pieces that they had, I thought this piece was such a special piece that I really want to cover it in more details. And the fact that we got to cover it with you is fantastic because I absolutely love this piece. Like, it is a beautiful piece, and I think, and this is coming from someone that I'm not an artist. I've never been. I've never gone to art school or anything anything like that, but I can appreciate nice art, and I think that this is fantastic, and I think it shows clearly that you've put in the extra details. And when you say you haven't had enough time or just haven't had as much motivation to do pieces for yourself, like Jupiter was mentioning, the fact that you put some extra work to help out for potential future clients, but also because you enjoyed the piece, it really shows. And I think if any of the Q chargers are listening, they probably would love to see you take on the other piece that you may work on at a later time, because that would be fascinating. And maybe that's your segue to start doing some art for yourself again and enjoying it as well, right?
Oh, definitely. I love when I get a client that gives me really basic parameters, but they clarify it with just do your thing. Just do what you're good at. Do what you want to do. We'll be happy with it. I love those kind of clients. Those are the dream clients. Almost as good as the clients that say, we'll pay you whatever you want. That's the dream client right there. We'll pay you whatever you want and just do what you want. That's living the dream right there. I don't get too many of those, but they're nice when they come along. So I really appreciated that commission from the team and their willingness to accommodate me.
Well, I think that's about wrapping up. So this is our time now with Steve to fanboy a little bit. So Ollie, you came specifically onto this cast because you wanted to ask him some things and talk a little bit. So this is your last chance. We have him in the corner. We got him, but we can't keep him much longer. He's getting ready to jump out. Rad Penny's opening the window.
Yeah, no, I've been like I've been loving the artwork you've been doing every time. Like you're one of the artists. Like it's first time I've been able to see your process of designing the cards, from like your sketches to your final pieces and even the work in progress. I love seeing that process and like how how your mind worked to create that piece. I would love to see more in the future. That would be amazing if you're able to. When you upload these on ArtStation, I always check them. They're amazing. My favorite ones, obviously, the Burn the Stockpile, as this podcast is rightly named after. And when you describe the change from aspect ratio from like the square border to like the larger, wider screens, do you find it like constricts your work a little bit more, having to fit work into this tiny box?
Well, I find actually that the templates constrict me more because I have the square composition. It needs to read there, but it also has to read within the elements of the card itself. So when I'm working, like I said, I keep a separate layer in front that has the basic shape of the card template on it. I have to make sure everything visually important fits within there as well. And sometimes as I'm working, I'm flipping the composition back and forth, and something that works one way won't work the other way because part of the template is blocking it now. That can be kind of frustrating. But having a piece like this, wide aspect ratio, for me at least, there's so much more you can do with the viewer's eye. You have much more control over where they go, I feel personally, and you can fit a lot more elements into it. It feels also more cinematic, almost more theatrical because of that aspect ratio. So I love being able to work in that. I also work a lot in more steep vertical aspect ratios when I can. That's actually one of my preferred ways to work, even though it's not exactly theatrical. There's a lot more you can do in controlling where the eye goes and how much information you can fit in there. Square compositions are nice, but they're their own animal, their own challenge. When I'm doing a free piece, when I'm doing whatever I want, I usually use pretty wide or pretty tall compositions personally.
Yeah, no, I've been really enjoying doing vertical compositions since doing like these card alters. I've like the vertical compositions really really speaking to me. Like you got a lot more control of where the eyes go when you're doing it.
Exactly. You have to infer quite a bit, don't you? You have to guess what might be in this part of the scene or what might be down here in the foreground or things like that, right?
Yeah, it's really fun.
He does a really good job with them too. I don't know if you've seen his pieces, but they're pretty neat. We did an episode right before this one on his stuff, so catch that. And then Dominic, this is your last chance to say what you need to say.
All right. So as always, I could probably talk forever, but I'll try to narrow it down to a few questions. So our very first episode of Burn the Stockpile, we clearly covered the namesake card, and I want to settle the ground here right now. And do you know what I'm talking about, Jupiter? It's time to settle this. It's time to settle it.
I don't think there's really much of conflict because we came back the next week and said our pieces about it. But go ahead.
In Burn the Stockpile, Steve, please tell us, is the character in the art piece a named character? And if so, who is it?
Is he a named character? No, he's not. I did not get a name in the brief, and he doesn't correspond to anybody.
I'm telling you, Jupiter. I told you.
That's what we said. Making it sound like we didn't come to that thing. We said the whole time. We said if it was somebody, and we guessed. That's all I said. I still stand by my grounds that if it was anybody, it was probably the card that I mentioned, which I can't think of the name. I can only think of what it is.
But in all seriousness, I just wanted to joke about that for just a little while because we were bantering a little bit in our first episode, and we really appreciate you coming on. And I guess right now, out of you've mentioned the houses that you would like to work on. Is there any of the houses that we haven't seen in your portfolio that will be coming up at a later time that you got to work on? Not talking about the card itself, but just within the current houses. Like you mentioned, you want to do some more Saurian and you want to work on shadows and whatnot. But is there anything that we haven't seen that you're looking excited for? Not discussing the card itself, but you're excited for fans to actually look at.
Well, again, I can't speak to too much, but I may or may not have some very special cards coming out in the future. The director came to me with, normally they don't give me much of a choice with what I work on. I just take whatever they give me. But they made me a special offer and they asked me if I'd feel comfortable doing it. And I said, sure, that sounds amazing. I'd love to do something like that. So, there's some special cards in each set, like you had those ambassadors in Age of Ascension, and that one of them in each house and things like that, and then the shards and stuff like that. I have something in that vein. I may or may not have something in that vein down the line in a future set, and I'm really excited. Can't talk about it now, but it'll be fun when it comes out.
And that's perfect. Yeah, we definitely don't want to go further than that, but I'm excited to see what that's going to look like.
I'm curious. Are they gonna let you in on the special project that they just released? Are you gonna get to do any of those? Like, you don't have to tell us what it is and stuff, but are you in on that project as well with the
You mean the Keyforge Adventures?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's been done for that already.
Nice.
I wrapped up on some assets for that 2 months ago. So yeah, I am involved in that.
Awesome.
They don't tell the artists all the details or anything. We don't know about the mechanics or really anything about the stuff that they come up. I was just approached and said, hey, we have this special Keyforge project that we're going to be doing. Are you interested? And I said, oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. I love working on Keyforge. And then they sent me the briefs, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a little different than the stuff I've done before, but I went ahead, and it was a lot of fun to work on. I was just surprised by the quick turnaround for it, and it being a print and play product I guess that makes sense now. Normally, when all the art assets are finished, we'd have to wait about a year or so for them to get to the nurse and then get off the boats and all of the logistics there.
I see what you did there.
They can turn stuff around really quickly.
I see what you did there. Get off the boats.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, but the last question, and this is one I guess that you may or may not want to answer, so I will leave it open and understand if you decline. So on Facebook there are lots of naysayers about the game saying how the game is dying. As an artist, do you feel that the game is dying, or do you feel that there's been enough growth and enough opportunity that says the game is very healthy and moving forward?
I can't speak per se to the community at large. I am involved on the Sanctimonious Discord, and I do keep abreast of things. Mm-hmm. I do see all the naysayers too. It's frustrating for me personally. I do know stuff that's going on that I can't talk about. But
right. I don't want you to speak about it.
The implication, FFG doesn't care about the brand at all. I find that ridiculous. Awesome. They know it's popular. They don't have to pay any ridiculous licensing fees for it. They
Ooh.
control and own the IP completely, which means they can afford to invest in it without having all that money being turned away into other companies for their brands. So from my standpoint as an artist, from what I know being an artist, I think the game is very healthy, and I think the company is definitely committed to continuing with that.
Man.
I do wish that I'd have a little bit more involvement on the marketing side from their end. There's been so much going on with FFG this past year and a half or so it's understandable for that in light of the wider situation. I do hope it's something that they turn around in the future, though, personally. But from where I'm standing, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, and you know what? Like everything you just said is stuff I've been echoing in reason, like in logic. I'm like, it's their IP. It's not like they're like, well, what about the Star Wars games? I'm like, do you know how much you have to pay Disney to make anything? like me and Dominic have had this discussion many times. I think me and Dominic are both very much in agreement, which is very rare, on the idea that like Keyforge is in a very good spot, and it's like out of all the things that FFG makes, Keyforge is the one that is the least amount of commitment to, as far as like commitment in the idea of like what they have to give to get, right? So I'm glad that you were able to at least clarify that much of it, because I'm really like in awe that people still have these discussions, honestly. So thank you for that insight. That was big on me. So Dominic, any follow-ups on that? Because I know that's something we talk about a lot.
No, I think I'm gonna keep my piece on it. I think that for this aspect is that I totally understand the frustration on everyone's end within the community. Obviously, we're diehard fans, and we're looking forward to a fantastic product from FFG. And I understand that there has been a lot of turmoil within FFG itself. It is what it is at this time. And I guess my final thoughts on this for this segment, because I could go on it on length, is that I would say that basically my thought process is that Keyforge is connected at the heart with FFG at this point because of the very low cost of entry and the fact that as a casual player, there's lots of people that will pick up a deck or two from all the sets because it's an easy, accessible game. And I think that Keyforge Adventures, with adding that cooperative version of the game, now adding new life to people's old decks, and now encouraging people that don't have or aren't interested in the head-to-head aspect can now play the game in a cooperative mode, are really going to enjoy it.
Oh, I'm very excited to see some Balancesheet bosses or something coming up. That'll be incredible.
They'll probably be the best looking ones in the game, honestly, but biased.
Well, I'm personally kind of nervous because I didn't know it was going to be print and play. Yeah. So if people are printing them out on crummy printers at home, it's not going to look as good, and I'm going to worry that they'll think less of my art.
No, I was going to say that I think we'll have to wait and see. So I'm hoping that this is a test run. I've even said within the community, I know for myself, I have a friend that has done many fan art cards. Unfortunately, he doesn't play Keyforge anymore, but he's done a lot of composition for a card so that they come out beautifully. And I've also worked on other fan projects for printing out cards after for games just for the fan aspect. But what I'm actually hoping is going to happen in this case is that FFG sees the large demand and interest in it, and potentially that the initial run is a print and play just because of the current COVID posture, but that they eventually go and actually do a full like a full expansion where they print that you can go out and buy these, because it's a little bit odd because FFG itself used to have what I believe was called print on demand, and so I think stores and could actually order kits for their customers, and that's a frustrating aspect to me, because not just for the artists but for my local store, like I can go ahead and print stuff off, but I want to support FFG, I want to support the artists, and I want to support my local store, right? And so I have some gripes with that, but I'm hoping it's just because of the current posture and just to give us product while we wait, and going forward that we get to actually see this product as purchasable items.
Yeah, so my idea for it is kind of in the same light as yours, where the idea for me is like I'm cool with print and play for now because it gets it to us right away, but I would like to see like after like so many of them come out to see like a prepackaged like full set of all the print and play things like in high quality, right? Like a limited run collector edition type thing. That would be sweet. So if you're listening, FFG, there's some thoughts. So I don't know what will come of it, but it'll be cool either way. So I guess we've held you long enough, Steve. I guess we have to let you out of this corner. I know Rad Penny is like starting to get antsy, and we don't want her to break the window. So anything you got for us, Steve, going out that you'd like to say to your fans? Would you like to plug sites where people can get a hold of you if they want a commission, or if like anything that you're working on that you want people to have eyes on? This is your time. This is your goodbye.
Oh, okay. My email address, if you're interested in a commission or anything like that, would be balance501@gmail.com. I have a website that I sell the playmats out of, and I'll soon be offering all of the Dark Tidings cards that I've done once that's released. And I believe it's balancesheetstore.wordpress.com. And my main portfolio site is balancesheetart.com. And I have an ArtStation profile that I think it links to from there. So yeah, those are my sites. I don't have much else in the way of social media, though I do have a Facebook page. But yeah, it's been a blast being on and being able to talk a bit about what I do. I really appreciate it. And maybe down the line, after all these Dark Tiding cards are released, I could come back on for another segment and talk about a few more if you'd like.
100%. We would love to have you on.
Yeah, I was gonna say like you're welcome back anytime you want, and any of your artist friends that want to come on, we're not gonna say no to that ever. You guys will get top line every time. So when you want to come back on, you just shout. We'll put you on right away, like as fast as we can. So this is what we're living for as far as excitement goes on this channel. So with that said, I got nothing else, Dominic.
No, I just once again want to thank you, Steve, for doing the fantastic art that you do, and being such an awesome person within the community, right? So it's great to have the art and being able to have the fans see what you're showing within the story of your art, but also the fact that you enjoy the game itself and that you dabble in it once in a while, and it shows that you're passionate about just discussing with you in the past 2 hours or so here that you're interested in the Keyforge, the Crucible itself. And yeah, like Jupiter and I have both said, and Ollie has said, like we really appreciate your time coming on. Really appreciate the stuff that you've worked on, and we look forward to seeing what's coming out.
Yep, and so thank you, Ollie, for your time as well, for coming on and sharing with Balancesheet. So I'll let you say goodbye as our special guest, and then we're gonna hang up.
Thank you for having me on this. Thank you for joining Balancesheet. It's been really insightful to talk about everything, and yeah, it's really exciting to hear about your art.
Right. Sure thing. If you have any more questions in the future, yeah, just shoot me an email.
There you go. And so that is it. That was this episode of Burn the Stockpiles, and thank you so much to Balancesheet. Thank you to Dominic and Ollie for coming along for the ride. It's a little bit longer than the usual one, but with good reason. And we look forward to talking to Balancesheet again in the near future for Dark Tidings. So thank you for all that, and we hope you like this, and we'll see you on the flip side when we come back around.